Okay, gonna get started here. You guys want to take your seats? I can still hear Jim in the kitchen over there. Mr. Keller, come on out. So how's everybody doing? What? Are you talking tonight? Are you talking tonight? You might be. You might be. That's next week. All right, welcome everybody to Fire Focus. It's December. I can't believe it's December already. Holy crap. Anybody else surprised? Everybody done with their Christmas shopping? Anybody started? Not me. Oh, I did buy my first two presents today. So at my barber. It was real easy. So, all right, we're just going to go through a couple quick announcements here, and then we'll go up. We'll bring everybody up for the night. Okay. So before we forget, there's no events the 22nd through the 31st. Okay, so we're going to end with, I think, Exchangers is the 21st, whatever that last Thursday is before the 22nd. That'll be the last event of the year, and then we won't come back until January. Okay, so if you show up here on the fourth Wednesday, which I think is like Christmas Eve or the day after, and the place is closed, don't post on Facebook asking where everybody's at. Okay, same with New Year's Eve. Okay, we do have a lot of great sponsors. I'd really encourage you guys to check them out. If you're a sponsor, raise your hand. All right, cool. We got two of them today. If these are all people that are members first, and then they pay to help support the club. So if you ever have any need for any of their services, we got lenders up there, security brokers, design people, social media people. We just ask that you give them a chance first. Okay, so if you're looking for that kind of stuff, just go to the website, go to iereic.org, click the sponsors button, check them out, give them a shot. Okay, they're all great people. And anybody not know what's going on Saturday? Nobody. One. Okay, I'll go for it. We are doing a holiday party this Saturday. It's also going to be the grand opening for the clubhouse that we've been working on for the better part of a year now. So we're going to be unveiling some cool stuff on that. We're going to be doing raffles. Everybody is going to get like a raffle ticket to come just for coming, and we're going to give away books and all kinds of stuff that my mom and Caitlin have been buying and wrapping. We are also doing a 50-50 raffle. So if you want to come possibly make a lot of money or possibly lose a lot of money, come to that. So if you're not familiar with a 50-50 raffle it's basically we sell tickets around the room for cash. You have to bring cash. It's only cash. Don't bring a credit card for a 50-50. It's all cash, okay? Because the winner, we're going to pull one ticket at the end of it. At the end of the event, we're going to pull one ticket, and that winner is going to win half the cash that we collected during the event. The other half goes to the club, okay? Last year, the first year we did it, the total was like $150. The second year we did it was $400 and something dollars, almost $500. So this year, we have 160 people RSVP'd for the holiday party at the moment, and it's only Wednesday, so I'm assuming it's going to grow a little bit. So I wouldn't be shocked if we get up to near $1,000 for that 50-50 raffle this year. So come on out, and again, bring cash. It's $20 for 25 tickets or $1 a ticket. The best deal is 20, so just bring 20. It makes it a lot easier. And then the prize gets higher a lot faster. If you want, we're also, before I get to that point, we are also doing a raffle or an auction for our mentors, okay? So our Fire Focus group leaders, Farrah, myself, Jim, Evan, and Andy and Goodwin, we are auctioning off a lunch with us that we pay for, okay? So the mentors are going to take you out to lunch. They're going to pay for it, and we're going to do an auction for that. So we're going to try and keep it PG as much as we can. Jim's looking at me like, yeah, but you got to sell it. Yes, Dad.
So how long does the winner get with that person, other than just eating lunch, or is it a longer period?
You get 20 minutes at Del Taco. No, I'm just kidding. No, you get to choose within reason. It's got to be up to Chipotle level. They're not taking you to the Ritz for 4 hours. Yeah. No, it's going to be a good couple hour lunch. midday, normal lunch, You're going to have some competition here, Dad. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so we're doing all that. We also have some surprises in store at the holiday party as well, so which I'm going to go into a little bit more, but then it wouldn't be a surprise. So, also, if for you members out there and you're coming to the holiday party, if you want 5 extra raffle tickets, and there's no way to buy the raffle tickets, the ones that are at the door, they're just the door raffle for the books and prizes that we're giving away. We're not selling any of those tickets, okay? Members, you get 2 tickets coming in. If you're not a member, you only get 1 ticket. If you are a member and you want 5 extra tickets, you can scan that code right there, and you can take a survey that'll help us figure out what we're doing for the club next year and get some good information on what members are liking, what you're not liking, what you think we could do better, what you think we could do more of, less of, whatever. So if you want to scan that ahead of time, or you can scan it at the door, but if you want to scan it ahead of time, it'll help us out. And you get 5 free raffle tickets. And we're giving away, like I said, brand new books. We're giving away, I don't even know. I feel like the person who's buying the prizes should be up here telling you. But it's good stuff. It's not junk. I think we're putting together a basket that's, we took I had an Airbnb until recently, and we had what the hell is that thing called that people cook in? A pot? Yes, thank you. See? Charades. We're good at this. An Instant Pot. Brand new. We're giving it away in like a basket. So there's going to be all kinds of stuff, up to like anywhere from books for like $20 all the way to like $100. So again, if you want 5 extra raffle tickets with that, you can scan that code. And for those of you that have been waiting for Firefest, I'm just going to give you the date right now. I'm not going to tell you anything else about it other than it's coming up in January 4th and through February 8th, okay? Who knows what Firefest is? Who does not? Okay. Anybody was in Firefest? All right. So this is our boot camp. We did it at the beginning of the year, last year, right when we moved into the clubhouse. It's a 6-week boot camp, basically designed to get you to your next deal in 6 weeks or less. Okay, we did this in March, and we ended up with 6 weeks of Thursday night meetings and a bunch of field trips. It ended up being like 30 meetings in 6 weeks. And people have been begging us to do that again ever since. So we are actually doing it again, January 4th, February 8th, and there'll be some significant discounts to get into that class at the holiday party. So that's all I'm going to say for now. Otherwise, I'll keep going and keep saying stuff. So with that, I'll leave that up there for a second. With that, let's get Farrah up here, and she's going to do a quick introduction, and then we've got some other people coming up. So let's give them a round of applause.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for coming on a night in December. That's why we have a few seats open, but thank you all for being here. I'm really excited for this series that I've been not been doing. Last month was the first one, and we just talked about, aiming at your target and kind of like leading up to what Rich had gone over as far as like the Fire Goals workshop. I'm saying boot camp now because you're saying it. So that was last month, and then this month we're going over analyzing rental property markets. And then the next 3 months, we'll go into financing. So I'm pretty sure, I'm hoping someone that does financing is available next month and can speak on that. He's nodding, so I think I got a soft approval. And then we'll be going into managing rental properties. I'll probably do that one more panel style because we have a lot of property managers. We did that before, but I'll do it a little bit different this time. And then asset protection. So that's what is coming up. This month, though, is analyzing rental properties. So we'll have, Bree is going to be talking about MTRs. Are you touching on STRs or MTRs specifically? So MTR specifically, we did have Stephanie here, and she went over analyzing the short-term rentals. So if you missed that, I'm going to try to get her to come out again sometime next year. But then... Anyway, so that's what she's going to be talking about tonight. And then I'll have Rich and Evan also touch on how they look at rental properties. So without further ado, Miss Breanna Williams. Give her a round of applause. Thank you.
Hi, how are you guys doing? Do you want to? Yeah. Just okay. So I'm Breanna Williams. I am the principal designer and the founder of Mumford Designs. So I design midterm rentals, short-term rentals, and then I consult on midterm rentals as well. I do co-host and an Airbnb superhost for my midterm rental. So specifically, we're going to talk about midterm rentals today, how I analyze them, and I have a property audit service where I kind of analyze the market that your rental is in and help you to determine what your guest avatar should be and how you can curate their experience specifically towards them. So we will get that up here shortly. There should be a link. No. Although with the link, I wonder if the clicker will work. We'll try it. Yeah, fill out that survey if you can.
Oh, it wasn't. Okay, someone read it. Which one? The second one you said?
So does everybody know what midterm rentals are? Anybody not know what it is? Okay, so a midterm rental, are you familiar with short-term rentals? Right, exactly, essentially. So midterm rentals are furnished rentals that are rented by the month, so 30 days or more. Yes, sometimes there can be like 6 weeks, so not always are you going to get a 2-month stay or a 3-month stay, but it does need to be a minimum of 30 days. So in the areas where you can't operate short-term rental, where there are regulations against anything less than 30 days, many times investors will opt for that 30-day plus option. Or if you have slow seasons for your short-term rental, it's also nice to kind of shift into a hybrid model where you can operate as a midterm rental during slower seasons, and you can still try to fill the space a little bit more. So that's essentially what midterm rentals are. And I would say the biggest ways that they differ from short-term rental, other than obviously the length of stay, because it is a longer stay, you do get different avatars. So yes, you might have some vacationers who are extending, doing extended vacations, but you also have a lot of people who are traveling for work, whether that be traveling through the medical profession, like doctors and nurses, or people who are digital nomads. They can work from home now, especially after COVID. There's a ton of them. So if you can work from home, why not work from someplace like San Diego or Orange County so you can go to Disneyland every day or whatever the case may be. So we'll kind of talk about different markets and how they might attract different avatars when we get those slides up. But that is, I would say, where the biggest difference is between short-term rentals and midterm rentals. Similarities, the experience matters. So we want to furnish it with their end experience in mind, making sure that whoever is your target avatar, you were thinking about them when you set up the property and making sure that you include certain amenities that might attract them. Of course, your photography is key. That's the first thing that people are going to see. So you've got to use your photography just to get them even looking at your listing, right? That hero shot is still the same whether you're going with Airbnb or Furnished Finder or Carpet Housing by Owner, or even if you're just directly marketing to like agents who are placing insurance relocation claims, et cetera, et cetera. So those are, I would say that's one of the biggest similarities. Does anybody have any questions about midterm rentals while we kind of get that running? Not really? Yeah. I would say no, because what I'm looking for when I'm analyzing a market specifically for midterm rentals is who's going to stay in the property and how much demand is there for that type of avatar in that particular market. You can analyze a market and then pick a home, or if you happen to be like at exchangers and somebody's like, hey, I have a property in Victorville, you can quickly look up Victorville and see, are there any hospitals around? Are there any large corporations, any big factories where they might have people coming out and needing to stay for a lengthy period of time? Or are there new builds? So like Loma Linda. Yeah, Loma Linda, obviously, huge hospital. You do want to make sure that that hospital hires out. and they're looking for traveling professionals. Not all hospitals are going to go that route. They're going to try to hire, maybe long-term, some of them, not all of them. So you do want to look online. We'll see that in one of the slides, how I search online to find and determine whether there's a demand specifically for travel nurses. There's a couple of different websites that you can use for that. But yes, that's one great example of kind of looking into the market to determine if there's midterm rental needs. One key factor, if you see like an extended stay suites or one of the extended stay hotels going up in the area, jump on that train. They've already done all of the research to determine that that market is worth investing in, and they're clearly putting in the money to build an entire hotel, so there's obviously a demand there. So if you are seeing one or two, or sometimes three, four, in the general area within a couple 100 miles kind of popping up, that's an area you might want to look at investing in. And then again, just dig into who the avatars are. Who do you want to specifically rent to? Design it for them. And then that will help to naturally attract that avatar into your property. No? Oh no.
What'd you do it in?
But yeah, but it's I did also include the PDF. So if you have a short-term rental right now, I'm curious to know what you're using for, because we're not really speaking specifically about short-term rentals. So if you have a short-term rental, what do you use right now in terms of analyzing the market to determine the demand? Anybody? AirDNA is a really good one, and you can use that for midterm rentals as well. You have to anticipate a longer length of stay, therefore they are going to spend a little bit less, so the numbers might be slightly skewed, but if you use AirDNA in combination with, in combination with a few other websites and other maybe OTAs, a little bit of the enemy method, that kind of thing, then I think you can get a pretty decent outlook on what to expect. So AirDNA is a rent analyzer specifically for short-term rentals. It's just airdna.com. And there is a free version of the website. Of course, the paid version is going to give you a lot more information. So you're going to be able to get more details. Again, it is geared specifically towards short-term rentals. So works great if you're doing a hybrid model, because you do get a good sense of during peak season what you're able to bring in. And that might help to fluctuate what you can list it at during the slow seasons on a monthly basis. No? Okay. Oh no, I have it on my phone too if I need to. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
How would you price something for 30 days
Mm-hmm.
relative to a one-night stay? Like what kind of discount are you getting for a long stay relative to?
So it does depend. I have seen several different things on like Airbnb, for instance. Of course, you can always go to a listing and there'll be a nightly rate and then a discount if you book for a month. I have my midterm rental listed on Airbnb. In fact, all of my bookings thus far in the last 9 months have come from Airbnb. So I do have to list a nightly rate, although I have it, set where they cannot book anything less than 30 days. So I don't necessarily give a discount. My nightly rate is based off of the amount that I need to make for the month. However, I do have, if you book 2 months ahead, I will give an additional, like a 10% discount or something along those lines. And then it's up to me to keep an eye on the market and adjust those prices so that I can kind of maximize the potential of rent, given whatever season it may be. Luckily, it's in Orange County, so there's not too much seasonality. Even weather is pretty consistent throughout the year, and people kind of want to go to OC. Doesn't matter if it's January or July. Did that answer your question? Okay. Not yet? I'm trying to remember what I put in there. Yeah.
Is there a fear that certain cities might ban Airbnb?
Short-term rental, yes, I would say so. I think they're also beginning to see that there could be benefit to bringing people into a community in terms of, as long as they're able to regulate it. So if anything, I would say of course, there's always a chance that they're going to ban them altogether, but I would say you have more chance of them just regulating the industry as opposed to completely banning it. Yes, I think so. I think it's extreme. In terms of midterm rentals, I don't see them banning anything like that anytime soon. Might they at some point decide that they want to regulate it? I mean, yes, but because it's 30 days or more, and that technically kind of starts to fall into the long-term rental category, they would have to redefine a lot of things before they could kind of start to place regulations on midterm rentals. So you do have to consider the fact that when you are doing a midterm rental, you have tenants, you don't have guests. So tenants' rights are applicable. So those are things that you have to kind of keep in mind when you're doing 30 days or more, whether it's furnished or unfurnished. One thing that I know is not in my slides that I will that I will mention is kind of the different costs that can be associated with running a midterm rental. So because you are furnishing the unit and then renting it furnished, you do have to pay the utilities, you have to pay the internet costs, you're going to pay your landscaper, you could potentially be paying, well, you're for sure going to pay your cleaner. Luckily, you can charge that cleaning fee similar to a short-term rental. And then you're going to have things like restocking. So it is common in a midterm rental to include, I call mine a welcome household essentials kit. So it's a welcome kit, but essentially it's like a couple rolls of paper towels, a couple rolls of toilet paper. I do include full-size shampoo, conditioner, body wash, and then like lotion, obviously hand soaps, dishwashing tabs, sponges, and then the obvious like linens and towels and things like that. There's going to be laundry. They're going to do laundry in your property, so you have to make sure that you have that in unit and that it's accessible. So you do have to kind of account for those costs as well. So I don't have that in here, but in terms of analyzing, when you do get to the point where you're ready to determine what can I afford for this property, you might want to factor, some of that in there. Yes. It should be okay, I think. Oh, it's not going to work? Slide? You can slide. Yeah, sure. So I kind of already explained who I am. That's my family. You're missing one little kiddo because she got cut off. But I have 4 kids ranging from 2 to 12. And, of course, my husband and I. And then, like I mentioned, I do co-host. I consult on midterm rentals. And I have my Airbnb superhost status now. That was exciting to get for the first time. You can slide. So these are the most important things that I want to touch on today. The location, the demand, the regulations, the avatar, and the pricing. And I prefer to do it in that order. Of course, you can kind of go in any order, and I will say there are times where you're going to get down to step 3. You've figured out the location, you know that there's a demand for it, but then you dig in and there's regulations that say, no, you can't do it. For instance, some HOAs won't allow any kind of rental like that, or if they do, you have to have a special permit in order to do so. It might be costly, and that might just make you go, I don't want to do this market anymore. Let me just pick a different one. And then, of course, you can get all the way down to the pricing, and you can start looking at occupancy levels and vacancies and say, oh, actually, I thought this looked good, but in fact, I'm seeing a lot of vacancies, so maybe this market is starting to lose a little bit of its demand or whatever the case may be. You could slide. So in terms of locations, specifically what I was looking for, the purpose of what we're talking about today, the market that I was looking at, I'm looking to see, do they have hospitals? Do they have any new build communities? So if there's an area where they're doing a lot of building, a lot of new houses are coming up, people are going to be moving into those houses, and unfortunately, a lot of times they can't move in for 6 months or 8 months or more. It just depends because their house is being built. And also, unfortunately, there tend to be a lot of delays in that aspect as well. So they might be looking for some place to stay. In the meantime, start to kind of get familiar with the community. And if you have an opportunity to provide that, that would be one good option for a midterm rental. Universities, you're going to have students, you're going to have professors. Sometimes they travel for work as well. Student athletes are a great avatar to work with as well. You can set up that property specifically for the athletes. And if it's a large property, you can coordinate with the university. Like, for instance, it's a volleyball team. You can coordinate with that coach to say, hey, if your athletes need someplace to stay, I can fit 5 women in my home, or whatever the case may be. And then lastly, tourism. So if you're in an area like San Diego, when you're on Furnish Finder, a lot of the travel nurses that are on Furnish Finder will build out their profile, and there's a little section that says, this is like all the places, the top places that I want to stay, bucket list of places that I want to work in. Almost everyone has San Diego on that list. So that is a great location. It's kind of got all of these things, so you can slide. Yes, so for demand, essentially you just want to identify the demand specifically for 30 days or more. So especially when you're in a tourism area, like for instance, if you're next to Disneyland, you're going to get a lot of people who want to come for the weekend or a week, but you're not going to get a lot of people who are specifically coming to Disneyland that are going to stay for a month or more. However, if there's other things in the community like San Diego, you might get people coming for Legoland, but they might stay because it's San Diego and there's so many other things to see. Or if you're in the Pacific Northwest, again, so many things to see. So that's just something that you want to look for. So we're going to look for several things specifically. We want to know that there's a high demand and a low supply so that we could offer that to them. We want to know that we can look specifically at reviews that are highlighted stayed several weeks on Airbnb, and that will determine that this particular property has had a lot of long-term or medium-term rentals. Any gaps in the design and amenity. For instance, if you have a property or a market that has a lot of outdated homes, I wouldn't say that the mountains here in San Bernardino are quite so bad anymore, but for a long time they were. Almost everything felt very outdated, and so now, of course, people have come in and seen that opportunity and began to fill it. And then again, new extended stay hotels, high volume of travel nurse job listings. You could slide. So this is how I determine supply and demand. At least it's one way that I determine supply and demand. Of course, there are many, many ways. So furnishfinder.com/stats. I'm going to try to have all of the websites that I use up there for you. You can actually go in and you can type in a city. You'll want to check the little box. It's okay, not a big deal. So you'll want to make sure you check the box and then just view stats. And when I searched Menifee, California, just because that's where I live and it was just easy for me, this is what I come up with. So in the last 12 months, there have been over 66,000 searches for housing requests in Menifee, California and the surrounding cities. Oh, thank you. And then the property page views, over 208,000, almost 209,000 page views in the last year. But check this out, there's only 610 rentals in Menifee and the surrounding cities. So we have thousands of people that are looking for housing, but less than 1,000 units for rent. And out of those 610, 270 are private units or whole home, which is typically preferred. And then 339, most of them are single rooms. So this is where I would look at it and say, I definitely see that there's a high demand and maybe not so much supply. Because really, I want to rent a whole house, so the 270, that's my competition. We could slide. So the next thing we're going to look at is, I use Airbnb for this step, and I just want to see how many people are booking properties and staying for longer periods of time. So I'm just taking already existing data, and I just kind of extract it from the Airbnb website, digging into their reviews. It can be time consuming, but I do find that it's beneficial because it will let you know that there are people that are staying this way. We can slide. So something that's relatively new, if you haven't noticed it yet, you can see Airbnb has added these little categories or things here on their reviews. So you can see, for instance, if I wanted to target insurance relocation claims in a town like Menifee, where there are a lot of families with younger children, I would know that the likeliness is my guests are going to have young children with them. So it would be helpful to see how many properties really focus on the experience with kids. So Jonathan stayed with kids, and Nikki stayed with a pet, so that was important. This person just stayed a week, so not midterm rental, and then this person stayed a few weeks, so likely midterm rental. If the property is strictly midterm rental, and in an area like Menifee, most of them are because short-term rentals are not allowed in the city of Menifee, so you're gonna see a lot of those stayed a few weeks. It used to say, long-term stay or something like that, but they recently changed it to just stayed a few weeks. So when I'm specifically looking for properties and I want to try to find those midterm rental properties, what I do is I put my city in. I know maybe I want to look at smaller houses. Maybe my budget just determines that I'm going to need a smaller house as opposed to a larger house. So maybe I put in 2 guests. Or if I know right away I want to go with a big property for more guests, again, like if I know I want to kind of work with relocation claims, we're going to have families with 4 to 6 people, then you could put in 4 to 6 guests. Or you could specifically put in kids if you want to. Sometimes I leave that blank as well if I don't know who my avatar is going to be. And then the biggest thing is you're going to put in months. 3 months is just kind of what's standard in there, and I have found that it does work well. But I always put this starting date at least 2 months ahead, because what happens is I want to see the properties that are getting booked. And if I put it for 2 days from today or 2 weeks from today, I don't see the properties that have been booked. I'm only going to see the properties that are not being booked. So I always put it at least 2 months ahead. 2 to 3 months is okay. Anything over that, like if you go 4 months ahead, some people won't have their calendars open that far ahead. They'll only have their calendars open for the next 90 days. And if that's the case, then you're also missing a good chunk of the market there. So I found that 2 to 3 months is kind of the sweet spot. So this is how I set up my search. And this is specifically what I'm looking for when I'm going through the reviews. Pick a slide. So this is where we're looking at gaps in design and amenity offerings. So I use what's called the enemy method. Has anybody heard of that before? So it's pretty common. Essentially, you're just looking at your competition to see what it is that they're offering and what you could potentially offer that's not already being offered in the market. So sometimes that could be the level of design. Sometimes that could be specific amenities. It also just lets you know what are the minimums that you must require in the property. For instance, if 80% of the market is including hot tubs, like they do in the Smokies, you're probably going to need a hot tub. Otherwise, they're definitely going to go with with a property with a hot tub over yours. We could slide. So as far as midterm rentals, one of the things that stands out the most to potential guests is the property fully stocked. You would be surprised how often people don't fully stock the property, and what I mean by that is they might include the bare minimum of maybe like plates and forks and cups, mugs, etc., but they might not go so far as to include an Instant Pot and a crock pot and a rice cooker or a blender, toaster, and a waffle maker, and an electric kettle for pancakes. Just think about those things. And honestly, the more stocked you are, if you can show that in your photos and they can understand that, I think they do see that you've put a lot of work into the property, and I do think that that conveys that you care a lot about the experience. So what we don't want to see is poorly stocked. Like they have some things, but it's a little dated. They took off the cabinet doors. The floors are damaged, looks like water damage, which makes me concerned of staying there in general. Maybe outdated furniture. What I don't understand about this one is the floors are new and they look really nice. They just need a new sofa and to hang the artwork on the wall. But that's just me. This is what I do for a living, is critique photos, so please don't. I hope that's not your photo. What we do want to see right here, we want to see well stocked. So if you do that and you take that step, put it in your photography. I photograph the inside of every cabinet and drawer in my kitchen so that they can see these are all of the things that you have to cook with when you're here. And then of course you can kind of, if you have photos of it, you don't have to list everything in your listing. Nobody wants to read that much, but they can see it in the photos and you can just say a fully stocked kitchen. We could slide. Yes. I haven't had any issues with it. I think that I just am very open and honest with my guests. I try to fill every need, so I haven't had anybody feel the need to walk away with any of my things. In fact, more often than not, I have things that people leave behind. I've had pillows, I've had entire bottles of liquor, I've had, even though I have 2 wine openers, one manual and one electric, I have wine openers that, like new corkscrews that get left behind all the time. And because I do what I do, everything in my drawers is all color coordinated, so all of my spoons and spatulas all match. So when there's a bright yellow corkscrew, that doesn't stay, it goes. So if anything, I have people leave things behind as opposed to taking things. I actually had a guest one time, we have great linens, And she went out and bought her own sheets and duvet cover, and she just left them there. They were brand new, I could tell. It was interesting. I think she was scared that her dog might ruin ours. So that could have been a thing. But, you know, I've had people leave lots of stuff behind. We could slide. So when we're looking at, oh, what happened to that slide? Go ahead and go back one more. So the high volume of travel nurse job listings, there was a slide, I'm sorry, somehow it got deleted, but there is a slide that shows you specifically how I'm looking for the demand in travel nurses, or for travel nurses in the area. So you can go to websites like Indeed.com. Yeah, I don't know where it would be. You can go to websites like Indeed.com, Monster, ZipRecruiter, Nurse Recruiter. Yep, that's it. Oh, I'm sorry. They're out of order, huh? There we go. ZipRecruiter, Nurse Recruiter. There's several others. And you can actually search, or you can even just Google travel nurse jobs near me or in my city that you're, you know, whatever city it is that you're looking to analyze. So what I did here was I just looked for travel nurse in Menifee, California, and you could see there's 251 jobs. There's like one hospital close to Menifee. I never would have thought there would have been that many jobs in the surrounding cities. There's more that popped up on Indeed for a Menifee search than San Diego, which was wild. So obviously there are a lot of nurses that will be traveling to the area that are going to need housing. That more than likely speaks to why Furnished Finder stats look like they do. So that tells me, yes, travel nurses could be a good avatar for this market. We could go back one now. Okay, regulations. At this point, I've determined that the location is good. I've determined that there's a demand for midterm rentals. It's probably a good idea just to double check the regulations. I don't think I've come up with too much in terms of regulations against midterm rentals thus far in my search. However, sometimes there are certain hoops that you have to jump through. So you might have to get your HOA to approve it, or you might even have to have the city approve it, or there may be a special permit that you might have to pay for, an application, etc. So you want to make sure that you're looking for county, city, and then if you have an HOA, you're checking with the HOA before, of course, you start to invest in the midterm rental itself. We can go next. Thank you. So the next thing is going to be just determining who that avatar is, because that is going to speak to the pricing and just ultimately the level of design and the quality of properties that we're looking at when we're doing our comparison analysis. So for Menifee, I have determined that travel nurses could be a great avatar. We also have tons of new builds. So new builds is up there. Digital nomads may come to Menifee because it is less expensive than staying in San Diego, but we're only about 45 minutes to an hour outside of San Diego. And then the last one, insurance relocations. So I was recently working with a cabinet installer in the city of Menifee, and they said the majority of our clients are actually insurance clients who have had floods or fires and were redoing their kitchen because they have insurance claims out, which immediately told me, whoa, your entire business is built off of insurance claims and redoing the kitchens. So that clearly tells me there's a lot of insurance relocation claims that would be in the area. So if I could connect with those agents that are helping their clients to find housing, then I could potentially provide housing for them. We could slide. Once you know your avatar, you kind of have an idea of what their budget will be. And you also have an idea of what their expectation of living is, the standard of living, I should say. So for instance, if you're looking through those Indeed listings and you see a lot of surgeons, doctors, things of that nature, they may have a higher standard of living that they're expected to than, say, a travel nurse. So because of that, you'll want to look for a different type of home when you're doing your comparison analysis. We could slide. So here is essentially just how I set up my search on Furnished Finder. So I went to Furnished Finder first. So I want to look for an entire unit because I already know there's a ton of rooms for rent in Menifee and not as many whole homes or private homes. So I'm looking for an entire unit. I want at least 2 bedrooms. If you're going with travel nurses, sometimes they'll travel in pairs. They'll never want to share a bathroom. Very rarely, I should say. In most cases, they want their own bathroom. So if you have 2 bedrooms, you're going to want 2 bathrooms at least. Unfortunately, Furnished Finder didn't give us an option for bathrooms, so I just have the bedrooms. I could, if I know that I want to include pets, I could put that in there, but it's not necessary for me. This is new. It used to be 0 to 3,500, and now they've upped their budget to 10,000, which tells me that there is more demand for larger homes, nicer homes, and I have more opportunity to charge a higher rental rate if I could provide the value. So you'll start to see a few things in here, and then I kind of looked specifically kind of close to Menifee is down here. I'm on the north side of Menifee. I also did look further into like Murrieta. I didn't go so far as Temecula because things do change a little bit when you get into Temecula in terms of like their city regulations and things of that nature. We could slide. So here is one of the listings that I looked at specifically for my market analysis. So what I want to show you guys is obviously first I'm looking at the price. Then I'm going to look at the location. Is it in a location? I'm very familiar with this market. It's where I live. Is it in a location where I would want to stay? Sometimes there's small pockets here and there where you don't want to stay. And Menifee does have a lot of rural area, so I don't think a travel nurse would necessarily want to go into a rural area when she's leaving or coming home in the dark. There's a lot of wildlife, we'll just call it. A lot of skunks, a lot of possums, a lot of raccoons that cannot be so friendly sometimes. So nonetheless, I'm looking for homes that are in specific neighborhoods that I'm comfortable with. And if it falls into the proper location, the price looks about right. I might not want to give time too much to the $3,000 listings or the $2,000 listings because I already know if I'm going to buy a house today, I'm not going to make money if I'm renting it for $3,000. Just not today. So I am going to look at the higher ones. So this is 5,000. And then, of course, I go through the photos and I look at the design and the amenities, and I take notes on all of my properties. So this one is really close to the wineries. It's about less than 5 minutes from Wilson Creek. South Coast Winery is right around the corner. This is a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom. It does have a high-end design. The interesting thing, this is not pet-friendly. That tells me I can offer a pet-friendly property that's of the same caliber, and I open myself up to potentially new guests or other guests that they may not be able to house. They have air hockey, ping pong, an exercise bike, an outdoor kitchen. It's a smart home. They specifically advertise being kid-friendly. So again, now I'm starting to see, kid-friendly is kind of important in this location. And then, of course, they have their community pool and hot tub, barbecue. Many of the properties in this area are HOA, so they will have some type of community amenities. Again, you would have to check with your HOA to determine if you would be able to allow your guests to utilize those amenities. And then the biggest thing that I want to also look at here is the occupancy and or vacancy. So for this property, they're actually booked through January 17th. If I had that search saying I'm going to travel in 2 weeks, I wouldn't have seen this property because it's booked through January 17th. This is why I push it out a couple of months. The majority of the properties that I'm using in my market analysis are already booked. So that's just something to keep in mind. We can slide. This is another one. This, to me, looks like it was a property that was possibly running as a short-term rental. They even have photo ops. And at some point, they more than likely said, you're not allowed to use this as a short-term rental anymore, so they shifted to mid-term rental. They are also on Airbnb. I found them on both websites. A lot of times, here's one thing to note with Furnished Finder. Most of the time, if they're on Furnished Finder, they're also on sites like Airbnb and more than likely several other websites as well. If you don't see reviews on Furnished Finder, go try to find them on Airbnb. If you can kind of pin in the location, you can go to Airbnb, zoom in on the map, and find potentially that same property over on Airbnb, and 9 times out of 10, you'll see the reviews there. And that tells you, again, just the experience level of what they're providing and whether or not that offers you an opportunity. So this one is $8,800 a month. And we'll look at the same size as the last one. This is in a neighborhood called Heritage Lakes. So I'm very familiar with this neighborhood, good design. They're well stocked in this property. Like I said, they even have photo ops. They have a pool, a barbecue, outdoor games. Obviously, they advertise as being kid-friendly, and then they are also pet-friendly. This one is booked through February 18th. So definitely has a little bit more, a longer-term stay. And then, of course, when I did go to Airbnb and I looked at their reviews, the reviews are impeccable. We could slide. And then another one, this one is actually from Airbnb, just because I want to show you a different interface here. So this one is an entire home. We have 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, so around that same size, and this one is $97.20. Sometimes you will see, actually in most cases, it's usually less expensive on Airbnb than it would be on Furnished Finder. I think that's probably just because Airbnb does charge additional fees to the guests, so if they're booking through Furnished Finder, they're kind of paying the same amount, but that is something that you'll commonly see. And so this one, the interesting thing was they don't have any reviews yet, but she's been hosting for a year. So I have to take this one with a little bit of a grain of salt, although she is currently booked through January 1st. So there are guests that are staying in the property, and then I kind of went in to see where they're located. This one is very close to town center in Menifee, so right next to all the shops and the restaurants and things of that nature. This would have been one of the top locations that I would have been looking for, specifically in Menifee, just because I know there's so many amenities there that they could almost just walk to Target or Home Goods or wherever they want to go. Although, this does make me question, again, the fact that they haven't had any reviews. Has she potentially had a problem filling the property? So I would want to keep digging into this particular neighborhood before I settled on that neighborhood specifically. And then also this one is not pet friendly. I found that several of the properties on Menifee were not pet friendly, so that does kind of give us a window there. We can slide. So overall, just via Furnished Finder, I was able to find 6 properties that kind of fit into the pricing category of what I was hoping to achieve. In fact, one of them is specifically advertised as corporate housing, and it is a brand new build at $10,500 a month. They do have multiple stays. They've hosted insurance relocation claims as well as corporate, and they have good reviews. It's only been open a couple of months, but that is an incredible price right there. And it is in the same area as most of these properties. So I like to kind of put this on a quick screen cap. I usually have 12 properties on one page so that I can see them kind of all together. And they're linked. I always link the photo to the property itself so I can go back and look at the listing if I need to. And I just kind of give myself a quick rundown. It's $5,000 a month. It's 3-bed, 3-bath. There's a pool. This is in Marietta Hot Springs. This one is in Vintage Hills, which is in Temecula, Menifee, Marietta Downtown. So I kind of have an idea of where we're looking. And then I take the average monthly rent of 6, 12, or more properties, just depending on, as I'm going through, if I feel like I need more data, then I'll take more houses. And I do take the average rent. I come up with an average, and then I can kind of come in and be like, okay, so annually it's gonna gross this much if we're at 100% capacity, 90% capacity, 80% capacity. I never wanna go below 80. But it isn't fully realistic to assume you're going to have 100% capacity with midterm rentals. It can happen, it happens a lot, but you can't guarantee that it's going to happen. There can always be something that causes a vacancy, whether it be a 1-week vacancy or a 1-month vacancy. And then I always like to note also here local events. Specifically in Menifee, we have things like the Temecula Rod Run, Balloon and Wine Festival, the music festival that they do in the summer. All of these things are in summer, early May, early June, mid-June. So that tells me that there is some seasonality to this market, and I might be able to charge more during the summer than I am during fall and winter and spring. We can slide. So now that I kind of know what I can get for the property, it kind of tells me what I can afford for the property based off of what I'm willing to invest. What's my down payment, et cetera, et cetera. This part, I think most of you know how to calculate, and I think Evan and Rich will probably talk a little bit about it as well. So I've just touched on it here, but essentially this is how I set up my search criteria in Zillow. I want to find at least 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, ideally 4, 2, 2.5, somewhere in that range. I want it to be specifically in that territory where I've researched and kind of funneled down into. So I was very specific. I want it to be north of Heritage Lakes, south of Marietta Hot Springs, west of Winchester, east of the freeway, and then that kind of gives me my pocket of where I want to look for it. If I'm working with an agent, I could give them very specifics in regards to what I'm looking for, or if I'm going to arbitrage, there are also property finders that can help you find properties that you can arbitrage, and you can give them very specific information, and they will bring you a property when it's available. And then this kind of tells me I'm finding homes within the mid-5s to mid-6s that fit my criteria. Again, I can narrow that down as I do more research. And then you want to just factor in any renovation costs and furnishing costs. I did want to note here, this is kind of the general rule of thumb that I use. On the low end of furnishing, if your avatar is a travel nurse, they prefer to save their money. That's partially why they're traveling for their job. So they want to, use as much, or they want to save as much of that money as they can. So for that purpose, if my avatar was a travel nurse, I would probably use the low end. That doesn't mean we use low quality. That just means that our budget for it should be lower than that of the higher properties. And then medium, around $20 a square foot, high around $30 a square foot. Again, because you could go really custom and really luxury with your furnishings and accessories. So that's kind of the rule of thumb that I use. And that's basically it. So that kind of gets you all the way to the point where you're ready to purchase a property and hopefully find one that fits your needs. So, yeah, any questions? Yes.
I'm just curious, when you are renting these out, did you prefer to rent them entirely, or do you rent the rooms?
You can rent by the room. I personally prefer to rent the entire home. If I was going to rent a home, I would want to rent the entire home. However, if I have people that are traveling together, we could always coordinate something where they're renting by the room. I would have to take that off of Airbnb, for instance, so that I could, properly write up like lease agreements and things of that nature. Otherwise, I would have to create multiple listings on Airbnb, and it would just be that kind of a waste of time for the one-offs. But you can rent by the room. I don't find there are certain avatars that works really well for in midterm rentals. Avatars such as there's things called crash pads for flight attendants and pilots. That works great. That's an expectation. In fact, they rent by the bed. And you can determine whether that rental is going to be for a bed that stays theirs when they're not there, or it's just there for the nights that they're there, and then somebody else comes in and sleeps in it, or they can rent, because they're paying by the month. So do you want to let somebody else sleep in the bed when you're not using it, or do you want just that bed to be off limits for the next month? So that's a popular one. You can also have sober living, transitional living, things of that nature, where it's also by the bed. So there are a few avatars that would work for. Yes. And co-living, co-work is definitely a thing too. So if you're looking at down that line, if you have someplace that also services not just local working professionals, but traveling working professionals, such as digital nomads, so you can actually look there and look at that type of avatar and market specifically to them. So with that, you would want to have a workspace that's set up where you could potentially have several people, make sure there's a quiet box for them to take phone calls in, things of that nature. But those are some ideas for like a co-live, co-work space. Yes. It's hard. You can definitely find less expensive furniture that's still good quality by going with like last season's furniture and things like that. You're going to find those types of things on TJ Maxx and HomeGoods. What you see there, the reason why they're able to offer these better prices is because they're usually last season, or TJ Maxx and HomeGoods will go in and buy the rest of the inventory when something is discontinued, and then they get it for a less price, so they're able to sell it for less. In fact, TJ Maxx and HomeGoods very often will have lower prices than what I can get directly through the manufacturer as a designer. So sometimes I can get it less expensive if, forget my account, I'll just go straight to TJ Maxx and I can save an additional $20 or whatever the case may be, which means my client can get it for that much less. So it's just knowing the resources that are going to allow you to get your budget to stretch a little further. I've had clients who want to go the route of Facebook Marketplace. It's more time. It can be less money, but it's more time invested, because in order to get the quality of design that you're likely going to need to be successful, you're going to have to refinish the furniture. In order to save money, you're going to have to do that yourself. So it's just really, really important that you have a very clear schedule for the work that needs to be completed. I had a client who had a property in Dana Point, and she had a lower budget, so she wanted to furnish it, but of course it's Dana Point, so there's a certain level of expectation there. So we did go with like a really cute vintage coastal theme, and that allowed her to use these older elements, and she just went in and chalk painted everything. So we just made a calendar to say, this is how long it's going to take you to paint your cabinets. This is how long it's going to take you to paint the nightstands, the dining table, the chairs, etc. And she created a calendar, and as long as she sticks to that calendar, she can complete it in the amount of time that she wanted to and get her property listed quickly. So just a little bit more time. So you have to, less budget, more time, yeah. Plan accordingly, yes.
So do you find, my original thought was that I would furnish all the public spaces and that they would bring in their own stuff for their private space, the bedroom and the bathroom. Do you find that that's
Okay, thank you. I don't know that as many people would want to have to bring their own things, but it does, I guess what would determine that would be how long you're anticipating them to stay. Because if you're looking for more of like a long-term rental, then yes, they're going to have to bring their own things because I'm sure they have things that they need to bring. And so then you also have to consider storage. So making sure that there's enough storage for each of those people that you provide. However, if you're just looking for month-to-month rentals, in most cases, people travel. They're not wanting to bring too much of their stuff. Crash pads, it is common for flight attendants to bring their own sheets, but I think that's just because the industry has not served them very well, and they're used to very low budget furnishings and things of that nature. So in order to just have some quality, they just travel with their own set. But otherwise, I haven't found that it's very common. I would maybe provide just the first set, like a little welcome, you know what I mean? Or obviously you're gonna have something furnished. So if you have just the first set of maybe sheets or something like that, and then they could just bring their own extras. But of course yes. You can definitely get a higher rental return if you are providing those things. Because even for 6 months, it would be inconvenient to have to purchase a bed that you're going to use, and then potentially the next place you go to might offer it, or if you're moving to a different state or something along those lines. So again, just really dig into your avatar, who specifically that is, their demographics. I mean, if it's a younger person, they may not be able to afford to go get those types of things. It just might be easier if they move into a place where they already have it. So, but if it is somebody that's older, they might have it and want to bring it with them. Yes. So, yes, the question is, how do we know if the property would best serve insurance relocation claims or corporate leases? So typically these are homes that are larger, so you're not going to get one person or maybe just a husband, a wife, and one child, that kind of thing. In most cases, you're going to get larger families, especially if you're in an area where it's predominantly families. For example, with Menifee, we know there's a lot of families with young children. So again, just kind of factor that in. If you're in an area, specifically if you have a property that you're already working with and you want to know, is this property specifically good for this avatar, look around the neighborhood. Insurance relocation claims are going to be people who live within a short distance of the property. So what is the demographic in that area? It could be older people, in which case you don't need a huge property. You just need a small property because they probably don't have too much or too many people that they're traveling with. So it is property specific, but in most cases, there are going to be people that need insurance relocation claims everywhere. So in most cases, that would work. Corporate leases is a little bit different. They're not just going to travel to any random city. You have to know that there's like a corporate headquarter, or they're putting in a new building. Like in Reno, they're putting in new Amazon plants, and they're putting in Tesla factories and all these things. So they're probably gonna pay for people to relocate to the area. And if they're doing so, they may be willing to pay you to just house them for a short period of time while they find something of their own. So that's one key. Anything else? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah, that's a huge favorite of mine. So it's the Restore in Temecula. There's two locations in Temecula. One is specifically the Design Center. So that's what you want to Google because they're about 10 minutes away from each other. The Design Center has things like vanities, countertops, sinks, lighting, flooring, tile, all these things that are just leftover amounts potentially from builder projects or items that stores may have had that they just had overstock in or they're no longer selling, so they'll just donate it, and then they're selling it at incredible prices. You can find rugs there that are new and unopened. You can find mirrors. Of course, at some of their other locations that are not design centers, you can also find used products like old cabinets that somebody pulled out. You could potentially repurpose them as furniture or for your own space if you need to add something. So that's a great idea. I also love outlets. There's outlets all over the place. There's a Living Spaces outlet off of the 215. You could generally get a sectional for like $1,500, and it's a decent, it's like medium quality, I would say. So there are lots of things like that resources that you can use. So you just want to know what's near you. In terms of decor, Facebook Marketplace, you can always find these people who buy like overstock from Target. They have no idea what's coming on these pallets, but they buy them, they put them in a warehouse, and they're selling all this stuff at incredible prices. And it's not as common as it was during COVID because, of course, during COVID, things were delayed, and when it all came in, they're like, we can't store it all, so let's just off sell it, So you saw it a little bit more then, but I do still see people who have tons of accessories or tons of artwork, pillows, things like that, and sometimes you can get them for really good prices. So that's another example there as well. And what she had mentioned was, I used to have a question. What she mentioned was in Marietta, they're opening a spa. So that's kind of one thing that could attract people to the property. Partner with these local companies. So if you can partner with them and include something or offer a package or give them a discount, then that can also set your property apart. Your question? What I would say is, I typically would analyze it specifically for midterm because that's the intended use for the property, but it's a really good idea to have an exit strategy, and if midterm rental just doesn't work for some reason, you want to know that you can at least long-term rent and still, make your mortgage. So definitely would still look at those numbers. And in most cases, on average, your midterm rent should be somewhere around double the long-term rent. So sometimes arbitrage is a good opportunity for midterm rentals as well. Anybody else? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Where do you find the county, city regulations?
County website, city website. You can just Google specifically like midterm or rental regulations in the city of Menifee or the county of Riverside, et cetera. So sometimes that involves a little bit of digging, and some websites or some cities just make it a little bit easier to find than others. I think the city of Eastvale has like a 40-something page book that's all relative to rentals. So it's very dense, and you kind of just have to, if you're going to really look at that market, then you just kind of have to do your due diligence and go through all of the information that they're providing. You can. So that actually was something that I did with the city of Eastvale when I was analyzing the market for a client. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to read 40 pages? No. So I did just call the city and I said, this is what we're trying to do. Is it allowed? Are there any specific regulations? Can you point to a specific section of the whatever book where I can, find the answers to this? And they were very helpful. So in most cases, they will be. Yeah, zoning department. Mm-hmm. I think Rich and Evan are up next.
Well, thank you, Bree. Thank you. That was such good information. It's a lot of steps. Anyone feel comfortable now going out and looking and analyzing a midterm rental? Anyone? Oh, good. So thank you, Bree. Thank you. I don't know if you guys want to do a coin toss. I'm just kidding. I know. I was already going to call up. So we're going to bring Evan up. He's going to just go over how he's looking at a long-term rental. If he's going, because he did a series. He did, oh my goodness. What do you want? A meeting like one of these nights. I am sorry, guys. I'm still a little under the weather. But he did it to where he talked about when he would sell, flip it, when he would wholesale, and when he would rent it. And I just asked him if he could talk a little bit more about when he decides to rent it. So, Evan.
Hello. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, I just got a couple minutes. I'm going to go over a couple key points that we look at whenever we decide if we're going to keep something or not. And I don't have any colorful slides with me today, so I'm going old school here, anyone that knows me. Yeah, so anyway, it'll keep me on track real quick. And I need my glasses because my eyes are getting older. And my arms aren't long enough. But really, it's like, when do we decide to keep it? Because when we get a lead, we don't know if it's going to be a wholesale deal, a flip, or I'm going to refer it to my wife, or we're going to, like I said, keep it as a rental. We just don't know what it'll do. So what we do is take all leads and then figure it out. We want to be the gatekeeper. Everything comes through us. Anything related to real estate, whether it's even anything, even with mortgages, anything coming in, we're going to look at and then see, you know what? Talk to this person. You know what? Go talk to this person. And we want to at least be able to help the person, even if it doesn't fit. If there's nothing we can do, we want to put them in a way that they're still better off that they called us. That make sense? Okay. So one of the things is there's a couple things. There's not really in any particular order, but the first thing that I still do is I still think of the 1% rule. Anyone not know what the 1% rule is? Okay. 1% rule is kind of I heard someone describe it the other day as an old idea, but it's still actually very effective, is that if you can buy something for $100,000 and rent it for $1,000, should pencil enough and keep as a long-term rental. And so if I can see anything like that, I will at least take a look at it, just a quick look at it. And so, so if that's, a $150,000 property, and I know I can rent for $2,200, I'm going to look really long and hard at it. All right? And and we have a bunch of those. And so if I know it's in an area that I'm already familiar with, because it's an area we farm, we deal with really the high desert. We deal with San Bernardino area, and then anything from Hemet to Lake Elsinore, for example, or main areas. And I'll tell you what, every time one of you buys a midterm rental and takes, say, a long-term rental off the market, good for us, because it makes our rents go up more, and it makes it more desirable to own a long-term rental. Remember this, there's 39 million people in California, and even though the population kind of stalled a little bit there, more people come than they leave, and we only built 123,000 units last year. We needed to build something like 300 and something thousand, and we're still way under, which keeps us one reason why we keep the rents up. So one of the things, like I said, is that 1% rule. I'll take a good look at it real quick, see if it beats that. Give you an idea, we bought one in, this one was a mobile home on land in Lake Elsinore, paid $121, we rent it for $1,800. All right, stuff like that. $100,000 on one, and we rent it for $2,000. Okay, that's on Lake Elsinore as well. Oh, you follow me? Okay. So the other thing I want to look at is if it's going to cash flow a minimum of $500 a month. That's the other part. So if I know the 1% rule's there, but I'm still going to put $500 a month in my pocket. Okay, now that's just a rough number because I know after, if the mortgage is $1,300 and that's PITI, that's everything, and I can rent for $1,800 or $1,900, say $1,800. I might have that $500, I might have $450, and I know after some expenses, some of the other things I'm going to have, I maybe only make a couple $100. But that is just one of the things that I look at. All right. One of the other things is with that. When I say I want to make $500 a month, that does not mean I go buy a $600,000 house with a $5,500 payment, and I'm going to go ahead and rent it for $6,000 and make $500 a month. All right. That works when my mortgage is $900 or $1,000, and you can still find them. They're harder, but you can find them, and rent it for $1,500. That's when that works. Okay. It's the amount of risk and reward, okay? So there's a couple things with that. And my fingers have not been working today. I was actually at the store earlier trying to separate the bags. I had to get my glasses out to do that. It's terrible, terrible. So I felt like an old man. The other thing really comes down to is what is the cost to enter into the purchase? And because if it's a higher entry cost and I got to spend a lot more money, then I'm already thinking it's going to be more likely to be a flip, provided all the numbers work. It's like, why do I take this house that we could flip and want to keep it as a rental? Because some things work great as a flip, but not a rental. We can't make $500 a month. We can't, it's going to cost $100,000 to get into it. And we're not going to be able to recoup that just yet. So there's a couple things going on. With a rental, I only want to put a few dollars out and do a smaller rehab to keep it, okay? So one of the things I've done is if I can get into something for $10 to $20,000 down and maybe a $20,000 rehab and be all in for $40 and rent it out and make, let's say, $500 a month. Idea is let's use this, if I have $30,000 out between a purchase and that's getting into it and rehabbing it, nice rehab, quick rehab, and I can make $6,000 a year, 30,000, 6,000, that's like a 20% return, roughly, even though it's more like 12 when it comes out to it. That's another quick number I go, okay, I'm interested in. Not putting out $150,000 to make something, okay? Because I can buy 10 of those smaller ones than 2 of the big ones. Understand? So it's one of the other things that we look at. And there's something that I call multipliers. For example, if I could get it if I know it's only going to beat the 1% rule, and I'm going to go ahead and make minimum of $500, and I can have a low entry, and it has something else. Maybe it's in a great area, but doesn't cash flow as well. Maybe that's something that has something that I know that has great growth because some new development's going in there. Okay? So that may be what's going on there as well. So it could be an equity play. Maybe we did a sub-2 deal and it's 4% or 3.5%, and most of the money, the payment every month is being paid down. Well, maybe I'm doing it and I'm breaking even on it, but I know that I'm paying down so much equity that it's a better deal. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, okay, a sub-2 deal is anything where you're purchasing a property subject to the existing or underlying mortgage. So if I'm buying a property from Steve over here, and he's the seller, and I say, hey, Steve, I'm not going to actually pay off your mortgage, but I will make it on time. I will help your credit. I will do this. Here's some cash. Go away. Because he has a 2.9% mortgage. It's already paid down for 10 years. There's 20 years left, and I know most of the heavy interest stuff's already paid off. And I know that every time I make that $2,000 payment, the majority of that is going towards principal, not the interest. That might be a play like that. Great question. The other thing is it might have an extra unit. You might have something to where, in other words, we bought a house in Victorville up by the mall, and it's got this 2-car garage with a bonus bathroom and a workshop. And I bought it, did the numbers, and figured, well, we're really just breaking even. But the second I get around to converting that ADU, that's an $1,800 a month cash flow. And that'll all go to our bottom line. So I bought it, even though I'm not going to cash flow any profit now, but that is a long-term play that when I get around to it, because we're so busy, all I have to do is put some dollars into that and we'll get a lot more out. So I write my lease that after the first year, we have the right to take the garage away from the tenant at a cost of, I think, $100 a month or something like that. All right, and they have an option to leave, but that's what we do. So we know if they're going to move in, they got 1 year, and then we're going to take part of the yard. And we have that written into several of our leases now. It's like, Mr. Tenant, don't get too used to that back 40, because we're planning on doing something in the future with it. But it's 1 or 2 years away, okay? So future deals. So those are some of the areas. For example, another multiplier is we bought a house. We bought 3 houses on one street. And what happened is when we went to it, I looked at it, wanted to buy it, and I saw it for sale on Zillow, I think. It was $130,000, 2-bed and 1-bath in the desert. And I went, okay. Saw it's on the market, so all right, I did the numbers. I'll make about $500, $400 a month. Not exciting. So then I drove around the corner, and I saw that there were 3 houses on the same street, next to each other and across the street. Same agent, all different owners. And then I went, 500, 500, 500, 1,500, one street concentration. We made offers. We ended up getting all three of those. So if I'm already in an area, maybe I'll take 400 a month from each property, and I look at it, and then if I'm doing that, well, again, it's easier for maintenance. It's easier to check on it. Literally, if I pull up, I have 3 tenants looking at me, trying to figure out which house I'm going to go up to, all right? So they're like, all right, what's he here for, okay? So it makes it a lot easier when you're doing drive-bys. So if you are in an area like that, it's something that works. So again, I call those multipliers. They're just other reasons to do it. And so if you can get if you can go ahead and do that and get in for very low cost and cash flow $500 a month and have them in an area or more, but last sub-2 deal we did, I think we make about $1,400 a month from them, and I think it costs us $35,000 to get into it, and we clear about $1,400 a month. So again, it depends. What goes on there? The other part with it, actually the last here. Probably my fingers, it's just not working today. Is that what it is? Does anyone's knees hurt? Yeah. See? How do I know that? All right. The other thing is it's within about 60, 70 minutes from my house. Okay? Today I had to run around to help something with my sister. That was 45 minutes from my house. Then we went to our granddaughter's basketball game. That was 45 minutes from our house. So then we came here, and then we head home. We're constantly driving for one reason or the other, but my attitude was always if I could drive an hour for my boss, I could drive an hour for myself. So if it's in my target areas that I mentioned earlier, or just on those outliers, and all the other things start coming into play, then it gets really easy. It's more like, how can I say no to buying in that area, especially when all of them come into play, all right? As in the 1% rule, you can make $600. Maybe you only need $10,000 or $15,000 to get in. Because one of my private money lenders, I can get in for like 95% down, sometimes 100%, and then I just pay for the rehab myself. Also, understand is one of the other things why I do the Inland Empire is, remember this Inland Empire area, Riverside, San Bernardino County, is larger than the economies of 25 of the United States. Okay, a lot of people forget that. I heard that. We had just bought a property. We had bought several properties out of state. And Richard and I think Angela, we were at Lance Martin's event, the State of the Inland Empire, and I saw that statistic and said, what the heck am I going out of state for? It's like right here. And I had just taken Andy's class about the same time, and I went, okay, mobile homes nearby, I could do a lot better without going out of state for us. The other thing is with all that pressure, I'll tell you this, I heard this from a friend some years ago, and he's been 100% true, and it's the best thing we did. He said, buy anything you can get your hands on between Hemet and Lake Elsinore. He told me that 4 years ago. We did, and we continued to do so. We slowed down the last little bit. We got busy. But the idea is there's so much growth happening out there. There's so much land being bought. There's so much development. I have a bunch of mobile homes in the area, and it was, I don't know which group came in and built 100 homes right next to it. Guess what happened to our property values? Way up. Okay, so again, I didn't do anything. We just bought some mobile homes on land. And one of the other things, if you look at this, one of these last things I'll say is, we look at the vacancy rates, not as much as lately, because most of the areas we're in are 4, 5, or 6% vacancy rate. All right, 12 years ago, when we first bought in like Barstow, the vacancy rate out there was almost like 12%. And then out here, it was like 6%, 7%, 5%. And I kept having problems out there, and I was really learning how much a 12% or 10% vacancy rate hurt my pocketbook. We sold that and said, stay away from that. Well, that vacancy rate's a lot lower now, too, in Barstow. And so pretty much anywhere here in the southern, and I'll say Southern California, but Riverside, San Bernardino County, most of them, I just looked again, are running between 4, 5, and 6%. Okay? Give you an idea, in Riverside, 45% of the homes are rentals. Now, just Riverside. That's the city, not the county. I was just looking that up again to see what that's at. So those are some of the things that I look at, that if it's in a low vacancy rate area, if I notice that, hey, we could flip this house in a certain area, but it has a higher vacancy rate, or it's in an outlying area, it's a lot farther, then no. Someone sends us a deal and we got to drive 2 hours, we might wholesale it. We might flip it if certain things are there, but I'm not going to keep it, okay? And that is about it on some of those main reasons, vacancies, et cetera. Anyone have any quick questions? Or is that later for something else? Yes.
Kind of related, I guess. When you were talking about adding an ADU, breaking even, adding an ADU later on, that'll give you $1,800 a month extra. How does that also affect the price of the property?
Well, the good news now is that appraisers are slowly starting to catch on, because I have a friend of mine that's all he does is add ADUs to his properties, his rentals, and for the longest time he was complaining that they were just adding the square footage. They weren't really looking as a second unit, but that was 3 years ago. Now it's catching on more that it is living space, it's another unit, they're looking at it that way, it's just adding value. But if you put 80 or 100,000 in and you only get $100,000 value, and that may happen, that is possible, it's how much more is cash flow you getting?
I was wondering if they had made any modifications to that based on the fact that now you're able to split off the ADU as a separate property.
Because that's extremely recent. I don't have experience with that, so check back later, or I might have someone that might have that answer, but I don't. Okay? If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you I do not know the answer, but I have a couple people we can call. Okay, but still a great question. Anyone hear that ADUs now, the accessory dwelling unit, you can build one and you can actually sell it off if you so desire, but it's very limited. You got to create an HOA on your property. It's a whole nother thing what's going on. Okay, any other questions? Yes, it's a 2-unit condo complex. You got to have rules for your common areas. All right, there's Farrah's bringing that to you.
What's the percentage of deals that you get for properties off market versus on market?
We still get the majority of ours off market. It is extremely rare. 2.5 years ago, we did I think it was 18 deals that we did that year, something like that. And I want to say we bought 8 rentals, and 5 were on market that year. That was 2 years ago. That was a fluke. That really was. And they were all here in California, SoCal, within an hour. One of the things I would say is I would look for an area that's showing that Zillow and all those fun things are showing really low prices, that you're scratching your head, because that's an area to target, because when the homeowner looks at their property and they go, God, my property's not worth that much. And you can show them Zillow and Realist and Redfin and the others and go, hey, this is what's showing, and you know that if you did this and this and this, you can add it and get more. Okay? I have 2 properties in an area that I'm showing these low values from PropStream and the other, and I'm scratching my head because I see what the houses are. It's like a mistake in the algorithms. But I'm I'll buy the entire neighborhood for that price. So, but those are areas that I'm going to spend a lot more time targeting coming up because the cash flows so well. When you see a 1,200 square foot mobile home on land renting for $2,200 a month, and you can pick it up for under $200,000, okay? That's where I like to work, and not the $500,000 or $600,000. She can have them. She wants them. All right? Different markets. We're good. All right. Anything else? No? Okay. All right. Here you go, Farrah. Thank you.
Thanks, Evan. All right. Now we'll call up Rich. He's going to go over how I don't want to say everything how he analyzes, but he's going to show you a sheet. I'll let him tell you what he's going to talk about. There you go. All right. Here he is. Yeah, sorry about it.
Yeah, let's get the clicker. Hopefully it still works. All right. So I learned quite a bit from Evan, so some of this might be repetitive. But I do things a little bit differently and a little bit the same. So just a quick background on me. I've been house flipping and wholesaling since 2017. We've done, over 120 now. I think this slide's a little outdated. And I've been a housing provider since 2020. I bought my first rental in 2020, about a week before they closed Disneyland for COVID. and I almost didn't buy it. I got really scared. I just really got really scared. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I came to this club before I owned it, and the people that previously owned it asked me what the interest rate was, and I was all nervous and scared to tell them. And they're like, "Is there a 2 in front of it?" And I was like, they're like, "Buy it. Shut up. Stop bitching and buy it." And so I bought it. And it was a duplex. I lived in the bottom unit and basically rented out the top unit for all the expenses for the house. So I lived in that unit for about a year, and then refinanced that a year later, bought a triplex, and then just kept going from there. So that was about a little more than 3 years ago. And now I'm sitting on like, I don't know, 5, 6 houses, 9 doors, soon to be 11. And I'm just keep kind of doing the same thing over and over again, and it just keeps getting better and better. So sometimes things happen, but that's okay. I've had a few fights with trees hitting my houses, and I've been chased out by raccoons, and I haven't really had any big problems other than that. Everyone's paid rent so far. I've been really lucky with my residents. A couple move outs that have been a little bit dirty, a couple things damaged, but I haven't had any horror stories yet, knock on wood. I'm super thorough about who I rent to, but we're not going to go quite into analyzing tenants tonight. We're just going to analyze the properties itself. So I focus, you can see some of my rentals here. That's a duplex. That was my Airbnb right there inside. That Heather right there. Heather, raise your hand. Helped me design everything. And then we tore it all out about a year later. So, but she's really enjoying the pictures and frames and stuff that she picked out a year ago. Now they get to be hers. So, so I have dipped my toes in Airbnbs, midterm rentals, and long-term rentals. For me, I'm a long-term kind of rental guy. Not to say that I think there's a huge market for short-term rentals and midterm rentals, just for my goals and everything else I have going on as far as flipping and wholesaling and running the club and everything like that, and still having a life. Or trying to. I just decided that short-term and midterm wasn't for me. I just like the long-term. I don't like talking to my tenants any more than I have to. So, I did really like. I really enjoyed for short-term, midterm stuff. It was really cool when people walked in and they told you how gorgeous your house was. But the one guy that left the sliding glass door open in the middle of the winter, middle of January, when all the gas prices skyrocketed and I got a $900 gas bill that month, the compliments just kind of, faded after that. So, so I'm back to long term. I shut down my Airbnb, and then I tried my hand at midterm for a little bit in our lower unit at the house that our primary. I did turn the lower basement into an MTR. I took all the stuff out of the short-term rental and moved it down there. And to be honest, we probably just didn't give it enough time. I feel like this always happens. When I decided to shut down my short-term rental, I started getting bombarded with people requesting it. And then same thing when I shut down the midterm rental. Same exact thing happened. I finally picked a new resident. She signed the lease. The next day, I got 3 inquiries for 6 month stays of $15,000, $16,000. And I was just like, nope, I'm good. And I was going to tell a funny story. So we spent probably 6 months outfitting this MTR in our basement, right? And we had issues with water intrusion in the basement, so I didn't want to have tenants down there. It took us a really long time. We kind of went back and forth. Then we shut down the short-term rental. And there is a massive difference between designing for a flip, designing for a midterm rental, designing for a short-term rental. Okay, so years ago, we do all of our flips. We do them very Spartan. Everything's white. We basically let people choose their color. We don't do any landscaping. We do the safety, electrical, plumbing, that kind of stuff, and make it livable and clean and habitable. Okay, that's what we go for. And one time we did a flip up in Crestline, and the people that we bought it from had this hideous, like yellow, like this yellow on the wall. Okay, like this was their walls. And I don't know how much money we spent covering over, priming that, painting it all white. I went over there about a week after we closed, and I'll never forget this. I forgot the keys to another house in that house. I don't know how. We don't do that anymore. We use lockboxes. But I went over there, and I opened the door, and guess what color they decided to paint the living room? Yellow. The same exact yellow. Literally. Like, I don't know if they just peeled the white off and got to the yellow underneath, but it was literally the same color. So I told this story a couple months ago. And then and why I'm telling you now is with our MTR, we had to paint the master bedroom because some water had got in there and damaged the walls. And we decided it was all white. The rest of it was white. You can see all the white walls right there. We debated painting more of the walls and doing an accent color. And then somebody told us you should just paint the whole ceiling and do everything. Like if you're going to go in, just do all of it. Like don't just do a wall or anything like that. So we painted the whole wall, right? We picked this really nice green color, kind of matched, kind of go with the trees kind of thing. And then we had our new long-term resident move in. And the first question she asked, she's just like, exactly, can I paint the bedroom? And we're like, and Caitlin, which color did she want to paint it? White. You know why? Because her house, with the house she was moving out of, her bedroom was green, and she lived in that house her whole life, and all of her furniture is green. So if you're flipping, just paint it white. If you're doing crazier stuff, call her, have her pick a color. So, anyways, that's some of my rentals. They're all long terms now, and the reason I wanted to really start getting into rentals because we killed it on flipping. I mean, this house, every one of these houses we made at least like 30, 40,000 on, some of them more. But the reason I put this slide on here, so I can see it a little bit better, this is what we sold it for. So these are just 6 I randomly picked off of Redfin. I used to save them all in our Redfin account so that I could go back, and then they capped it at 20. So after we did 20 flips, I was like, I wasn't going to start doing this, or start making multiple accounts. But the reason I wanted to show you guys this, so we sold this one in 2020, July 2020, right after COVID started. I think we were ecstatic to get out of that house for $399. And the last time I looked at that house, it was worth over $5. I think it was like $550, almost $6. This one up here, same thing. That thing's worth like $280, $300. Now we sold it for $155. These people, this one, we actually sold that house. Do you remember what we sold, Mom? Do you remember what we sold Big Oak for? Was it 3? It was 30. Yes, it was 305. We actually had to fight an appraiser for 305. An appraiser came in and told us it was only 260. We told him to go to hell. The clients ended up wanting us to eat it. We said no. We got a new buyer, and then on a different loan, and they came in and appraised it correctly. So 305, and that was in 2021. We sold that, and then it's the people that bought it from us literally resold it for $430. They made more on the resale than we did on the flip and did all the work, and they did nothing. Okay? And that's happened more than once. If I go back and look through these houses that we flipped, where they resold it and made more than we did on the flip, and they literally changed nothing. So I could even see my crooked cabinets still in there that we redid because my contractor didn't know to not follow the ceiling on when you're hanging cabinets. And it kind of went like this. He's like, oh, we'll get it right on the next one. I'm like, sure. All right. So anyways, so that's why I wanted to, you really want to start hanging on to rentals as much as you can. Flipping's great for lifestyle and stuff like that. Or if you build but it kind of becomes a beast. So we wanted to start hanging on to rentals, which is why we started trying to hang on to it as much as we can. So as far as analysis on when I decide how to or when to hold on to something and when to flip it, I kind of do it a similar way to Evan. It depends on how much money is going to go out. It depends on a lot of things. The long and the short of it is, if I have the money to put into it and I can get out of it, like I can refi, back out of it, either the Burr method. Anybody ever heard of Burr? they'll tell you it's dead. I think it's still very doable, especially here in California. Twin Peaks, I picked this property up for $90,000. It cost me will have cost me about $110,000 to turn it around. $30,000 of that was just to get in the front door because it's got a staircase and the stairs are really long and steep and expensive. So staircase, if you ever flip anything in the mountains and you have to do staircases, like triple whatever you think it's going to be, and then maybe even triple it from there. Because if you want it straight, it's going to be expensive. If you want it kind of slapped together and, it might last, might not, or you might be kind of walking funny going down it, you can get it done cheaper. But so for this house, really, this house is going to depend, if I end up keeping it or not, is what I can sell it for. So with this house specifically, I did a hard money loan where I don't have to make payments for 6 months. The interest is accruing, but I don't have to actually make the payments for 6 months. So I will have flipped this house in under 3 months. I'm hoping to get it rented in under 4. So I have time to see if I can get what I think I can get for the rent. If I can't, then I'm going to put it on the market. So, and then for this one specifically, I basically was shooting for if I can make $300,000 on the, or $300,000. If I can make $300 a month on it, I'll be okay. That'll basically keep up with the maintenance. But I got the place so cheap that if I can refi out of it at around $250,000, I'll have $75,000 worth of equity, and I'll get all my money back that I put into it. So I basically will have gotten into it for very little and have a house. So that house makes sense if I only make $300 a month in cash flow, or even break even. It makes sense because I have equity, and that equity is going to grow. But I won't necessarily cash flow off it very well. But I also will have known everything that got done to the house and know that I don't have to do anything for a while either. If I can keep the houses that we flipped, even better, because again, I know what's gone into them versus buying something that I know nothing about or the history on, and I can only see what I can see. Versus if I knew that, the company put a new roof and plumbing and blah, 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 and I don't have to worry about that stuff, or I know the contractor who did it, that a year from now, where there's a problem, I'd much rather buy that one. I did buy my first house was a house that had been flipped, and I didn't do the work, and I haven't really had anything wrong with it, but it's starting to show in certain areas. Like they use cheap siding. I put hardy siding on all of our stuff now. If it's getting replaced, I put hardy siding on it because if I'm going to keep it, I want it to be hardy siding, which is, for those of you who don't know, hardy siding is the fiber cement siding instead of using the cardboard siding that as soon as water looks at it, it curls up. Okay, so the house that I have, or the first house that I bought has the cardboard stuff, and when it snowed and there was 4 feet of snow on the ground up against the house, I have panels that are kind of warping a little bit now. So not the end of the world, but something I'll have to deal with eventually. So that's Twin Peaks. If I can't refi out of it, or if I can't rent it for what I think I can, and it's, let's say I can only rent it for $1,900 instead of $2,300, then I'll have a decision to make. I don't know which way I'm going to go at that point, but if I could, or I could sell it. The cool thing about it too is because I bought it for $90,000, the tax basis on it is stupidly low. Versus the other house I bought for $450,000 has a lot higher tax basis on it. So, with Prop 13, so that's a factor also. And you got to look at all that stuff. Some of the stuff is people analyze. You'll hear us. Everyone has their different goals. This is kind of the workshop we did a couple weeks ago. Everyone has their different goals and their different risk tolerances. Where they want to be at and when they want to be at that. So this house is a house that I could stomach not making cash flow on. Do I really want to have $110,000 cash wrapped up in it long term? No. So if I can't refi out of it, then I'm going to sell it. Okay, and even if I sell it at a fire sale, I'll still make 50. So, either way it works. Who is it, Biltan? Good enough? Good enough. Would you like to make 50? Yeah. Me too. Just fair, apparently. All right, Running Springs. So this is another one. Like Evan was talking about, what's your entry cost? this house was expensive. It's a big house. It's up in Running Springs. I normally don't buy things in Running Springs. I really try and stick to Crestline because I feel like every time we step out of Crestline, we get bit some way or the other, as evident by the flip that we have sitting on the market right now. So, in what do you know, the $500,000 range. Evan's like, you. So, anyways, this house, but this is something me and Caitlin locked up a few weeks ago. Somebody came to us, a seller came to us, and actually from this club, and had a house up in Running Springs that she had moved out of. She had moved down to Redlands, and she had this property up there that she was basically paying 2 mortgages on. And we went and looked at it. We sat down with her. We started having the subject to conversation with her. She was open to it. We were originally going to put some money down, thinking that it didn't need any work. Like the way the pictures looked on the listing that she showed us, the way she was describing it, it seemed like it was pretty turnkey. And then we went and walked it, and it turns out it needed like more work than we were actually going to pay her. So, we basically sat down and we went through it, and we were like, hey, I can't put much down, but we can solve your problem. So we ended up paying for escrow costs and helping her get rid of her agent and pick that property up. So we got that into that property for $6,000, and it's a 2,000 square foot, 2-car garage, 4-bedroom, like just standard house in Running Springs. That her all-in payment, she had a 2.9% interest rate, but she bought it for $465 2 years ago, and that's pretty much what you could sell it for right now. So if she was going to sell it, she was going to be out $40,000 that she's probably have to write a check to the agents and commissions and sales fees and escrow and all that stuff. So we solved her problem, but you got to be careful that you're not taking someone else's problem and making it your problem. So just because it's subject to and they have a 2.9% interest rate doesn't mean that it's a good deal. You'll see these all over, Facebook all the time where it's just like, it's subject to, and everyone's like, well, great, but you got to make sure it still works. So for this particular property, the time of the year, it's hard to rent houses out up in the mountains. This time of year, just slow. That's anywhere, but especially in the mountains. So the all in on the mortgage is like $2,650, and high end of the market up there, like tippy top of the market up there, is about $2,900. So, and again, this property needs some work, and I don't want to do that work right now. It needs to get it to $2,995, the top of the market. Like, it needs countertops, it needs a paint job. I mean, it needs like 34. It's clean, or we're gonna rent it out. We're gonna try basically rent it out for. We're gonna clean it up. We're gonna rent it out for like $27.95, so that if maybe we'll make $100 cash flow a month, but realistically, vacancy, the money that we put into close, and maintenance, we're probably going to be negative. It's going to be an alligator for a little while. So at least until we can raise rents a little bit more, or we can do something else. But we got into it for almost nothing, so it makes sense in that way. So any questions there? So that's Running Springs. And then Crestline, I was just going to give you a quick overview. I usually look for properties that have some kind of multi-unit. I've found that there's like a sweet spot up there for about the $1,500 to $2,000 mark, with utilities included, and basically like that 500 square foot to 700 square foot units that just rent instantly. Like, I have 6 of those units, and they're usually not vacant for more than like 6 weeks. So that is what I target. And like Evan talked about, if I could get $500 a unit, and I'm buying them for anywhere between, $200,000 and $450, that generally works out. That it's, I'm cash flowing decently well on them. I try and get into them if we already did the rehab on them, so I know what I'm getting into, and I know that they were painted well. The big thing up in the mountains is if you're going to buy a house, especially a rental. I turned one down the other day because the rehab on it was so shoddy that I couldn't even trust the paint job on it. And if you're cash flowing only a couple $100 a month and you got to paint it in 2 years, you're not cash flowing, in reality. So that's kind of my bread and butter. I've been trying to really stick to that. So the more I can, do that, the better. And I put this dashboard together. I gave it to people that took the workshop, and really, it's just like important to like know what you're trying to do before you go and pick up a rental. Like, don't just pick up a rental just to have a rental. I mean, it's not gonna hurt you as long as you get it at a decent price. But like, if you want to get cash flow, don't spend all your money getting into a deal that doesn't cash flow. If you want equity and then you can make that play. But just know, you don't want to just get into something just because somebody calls you and they have a problem doesn't mean you have to make it your problem. Okay? Like, not every phone call is a deal. You could make it a deal, but you don't have to. Okay? And I wanted to kind of go through the rental calculator real quick to kind of show you guys a couple things. Anybody want to see that? Yeah? Okay. Just give me 1 second. I gotta switch over. Let's see here. Put that on. Yeah, I have a podcast. Anybody watched it? Yes. Yeah, I need more people. I need more guests. So go to Fire Chat Podcast there and come on the show. And we'll laugh a lot like me and Caitlin do. All right. Rental calc. Here we go. Oh, you know what? ALA, can you drop that other screen down for me? Please. Ooh. I hung that by myself. I got a ladder, like 3 ladders up, a bunch of big zip ties. It was fun. He's like, why didn't you call me? I did. I was sick. No, I rehung it. Yeah, I rehung it. I had to move it over. He helped me hang it the first time, though. No, that was before the scissor lift. All right, let's see if this thing comes on. Which pocket I have the... Where's the black remote? Yeah, try and get it to go on. It's 4. Just hit all the 4s on the right side. And point it up there at that white thing. Just hit 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. I thought it was 4. Well, it's the 3rd one, but it's the 4th. Yeah, but if they hit all the 4s, they'll eventually get to it. There we go. All right, so I didn't make this. I got it off some guy on Reddit or something years ago, but I really, really like it because you can kind of get an idea of what you're looking at. So this is the numbers that I put together for Twin Peaks. What's that? Oh, yeah, sure. So this is for the Twin Peaks property that I was just talking about. And this was like when I first ran it, I wasn't sure exactly like what I was going to have to do. I was just kind of running the numbers and see what it would come out to. So you can put in your like property value, your purchase price, your down payment, your interest rate. So these are numbers that like I'm trying to figure out after I rehab it. So even though I got it for 90, I'm expecting that I'm going to be all into it for 200. So that's why that purchase price is 200. Okay. And I'm estimating like the worst I could get for this house would be 300,000. I think I could get 325, but no matter what I'm looking at, flips, rentals, whatever, I'm always assuming I'm running off the worst and hoping for the best. Okay. Interest rate 8.5. Steve, would you say that's fair for DSCR, or am I fishing? Okay. Sounds like I'm high. It's okay. We're not going to hold you to it. It's all right. You're not on camera. All right. So 8.5, 25% down payment. The over here is my rental income. And you can play with these numbers, but I'm just going to show you why I like it here in a second. You put in your insurance. You put in management fee if you have it. Maintenance reserve, which I started going higher. Vacancy allowance, I should probably put something in there. When I first started renting in Crestline, and if I stick to those 500, 600 square foot units and that kind of bread and butter that I talked about, I still put it at like 5%. But in Twin Peaks is a little further up the mountain. It's not as commutable as Crestline is, so it's probably going to take a little bit longer to rent, especially since I'm trying to get a little bit higher. And remember those stairs that I talked about that were really expensive? There's not a lot of people that want to go up and down them. So, but there are some weird people that do. They see stairs and they're like, I love hiking. And I'm like, okay. When I did have stairs, I was in a lot better shape. So, I did. I moved out of my house that had stairs. Like I had like 3 flights of stairs that I went up like 6 times a day. And I worked out. I was going to the gym. Didn't have a girlfriend that cooked a lot of really good food. This was like 12 months ago, and I was like 30 pounds less. So the stairs thing, we need to move to a house with a lot of stairs. That's my problem. I just realized it. We're moving here. You just heard it. So you wait 3 months, you'll be jacked again. All right. And then, so what it shows you on this screen is like your monthly cash flow. Okay, so once you fill in all this stuff, and this does go lower, but it's going to get small. So let's see if we can get it a little bit. So you can also put in, ignore this for right now, but you can put in your closing cost to buy or sell, whatever miscellaneous expenses you have. If you have utilities that you need to pay, it'll add it all up for you. And then this thing gives you a snapshot of what you're going to make, hopefully. If you are honest about these numbers, these ones should be somewhat accurate, okay? So this thing's telling me that if everything worked out, I'd make like $680 a month in cash flow. My cap rate would be 11%. Cash on cash would be about 14%. And in year 5, I'd have $200,000 in equity if everything worked out. Again, hopefully worst case scenario, so hopefully these numbers would be better in 5 years. So no matter what here, where's my other tab? There we go. So what I really like about this thing, and what this thing really made me focus on more, is that when you click on this financial analysis tab, it really shows you why, like the power of your rental and why you want to try and hang on to these things. Because if you flip it and you made $50,000 off the thing, that's it. That's the only money you're ever going to make on that house, okay? But when you look at it from this perspective, your monthly cash flow right there, that's your cash flow. Just what you're going to make, just your gross rent minus your PITI, and that's what you're going to get, and your expenses, right? But what you're going to lose on flipping, or if you don't own the property and you're arbitraging or something like that, you lose all this. So your principal pay down and your yearly appreciation, and also the depreciation on your taxes, your mortgage interest, and all of that equity accumulation, okay? So you could make $50,000 now, or if you hold on to this thing into year 27 and a half, somewhere in there, you're going to be at somewhere between $450,000 and $730,000. And you will have paid off your loan at that point. Now, chances are you probably refi and bought a Ferrari or something, along the way. But if you're disciplined and you have 10 of these things, that's why people buy rentals. So when I really started looking at that, that's why. So like at that Running Springs house where we got into it for very little, and it's not going to make anything cash flow, what I am getting is all of the principal pay down, all the appreciation. I can now claim the depreciation on my taxes and offset the properties that I'm making cash flow on. And that mortgage balance is going down and my equity is just going up. So eventually, either I can leverage that to something else or sell it eventually, or 1041 it into something or whatever. It just gives you options, for down the road. And as much as the options are sometimes overwhelming, and you got a lot of options in front of you, and you can't decide which way to go, it's still good to have options. So better than having no options and being forced to do something. So Yeah, that's is that helpful at all? Yeah. All right. Well, that's any questions? I know everyone's tired. What's up, Sylvia? Can you get a copy of it? Yeah. Yeah, I'll post it in the Facebook group. I'll just post a link to it. I didn't make it, so this dude put it out for free. So you just have to copy it, and then you can play. I kind of modified it a little bit, but you just have to change the numbers on those. You just got to make sure you don't break the formulas, and then it works fine. Anybody else? Rafa, you just stretching? All right, that's all I got. Yes. And on that note, so LA called. LA, you mind me sharing this story? So LA called me the other day, and he had a deal on his desk, and found out the wholesaler was making more than he thought the wholesaler should make. And I asked him why. Like, why is that a problem? And I've been there. We flipped a house up in Crestline years ago, and we paid somebody like $60,000 on a wholesale fee, and we made like 25. And I remember that was back when I hadn't been investing that long, and I was pissed. Like, I was like, we found that out after, but now I realize, like, I've also been on the other side of that equation where we made 60, and wholesaled it to somebody. But that person, one of the people I was telling LA about, it's like, I've sold that guy, I don't know, 10, 15 houses now, something like that over the years. And we've had wholesale fees anywhere between like 30 and 60 and sometimes higher. And but really, like, if it makes sense for you, you're getting the better end of the deal in the long term. Anybody see The Big Short? Yeah. Like, the wholesaler's getting the cherry on top, but you're getting the sundae. So just keep that in mind. Like, if it's a deal, do it. Don't let what someone else is making stop you. If it gets you to where you need to be, do the deal. So, all right, cool.